for some of you to take your seats. Welcome. Welcome to all of you to what we hope will be a very special morning. A morning of tribute, reflection, and dedication to free and fair elections come May 29th. We gather here at the grave, at West Park Cemetery, close to the gravesite of Ahmed Kathrada, who 7 years ago this morning at about 5, basically had his last breath. And within 24 hours, the funeral took place on site here. So we decided that today's tribute and reflection and memorial must focus on the forthcoming elections, because these elections from '94 have always been something. Every election was very special to Uncle Kathy. He never avoided voting. Was very proud of that ink stain on his thumb, and would walk around with it for as long as was possible. The first time he voted was in '94, and he writes in his memoirs that even though at the time there was talk of bomb blasts and threats to the elections, he and many others in those long queues were not going to be moved. They would stay there, because that was his first opportunity at being able to vote. He had seen a ballot form before, but that was after his release on a visit to Germany, and that was the first time. So he was not going to be moved by all the violence in the 10 days that preceded the '94 elections. So we've gathered here today on his death anniversary so that all of the speakers that we've invited from the various political parties, and I want to thank all of them for having agreed to come here today, and in particular and in alphabetical order, those who have agreed to come and speak: the ANC, Action South Africa, BOSA, the DA, the IFP, Rise Mzansi, have all agreed to come and share their reflections, pay their tributes, but in their tributes also commit or recommit to free and fair and a non-violent election, because there is this growing threat, whispers and rumblings of not wanting to accept the outcome of elections for whatever reasons. And we've seen what that kind of talk can do in the US. And there should be no place for it here today. So I'm hoping that as we gather and as we make our commitments here, we will include some kind of commitment to those aspects. I know all parties will sign the Electoral Code of Conduct, and you will do that publicly. But we hope you will also reflect on that here today. 60 years ago, in June, the Rivonia trialists were sentenced and started their life sentences. And we think that this year in June, we must remember that trial. We must pay tribute to those trialists. But 60 years ago, a number of political prisoners were also executed for the first time in this country. And we will pay homage to them. This year on Heritage Day, Piers Naudé would be marking 20 years of his death in September. And we hope that around Heritage Day there'll be a gathering here to remember Beyers Naudé and the work that he did to bring about this democracy. These are a few of the individuals. Laying next to Kathrada, you will find the poet laureate, Prawoli Khotsisile, Kathy's lawyer, George Bezos, his friend in the Congress Alliance, Reg September, Beyers Naudé. Providing the music to this lot is Hugh Masekela. Giving them lots of history lessons there would be Hermanus Lutz. Mosey would be giving his own sense of uniqueness to that conversation. Isup would be the hardline. Aziz would be there with his soft diplomacy. Ibi Ibrahim would be the one that's just pulling it all together from behind the scenes. And then Jesse, the kind of taskmaster. And to close off those proceedings in that corner would be Don Matera. Now that's the kind of people only in that corner where Kathrada lays today. But if you walk down this whole row, you will find the many, many names of people who've made heroic contributions to freedom in this country, whose stories are perhaps not well known, and more work needs to be done in that regard. So, to kick off, we will have a welcome from a board member of the foundation, Pumla Williams. I'm not going to give long introductions because we want to finish here by 12. Lastly, also, speakers will be requested to stick to the time allocation. And as you see me getting closer to you, you must know your time is actually less and less. So Pumla will set the example. Pumla Williams.
I already feel intimidated. Thank you very much, Shan. Good morning, and thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Shan has already given some kind of a background to this event, but I will touch a few things that I thought might be important. On an annual basis, as the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, we visit Uncle Kathy for a simple reason that we pay our homage and our respects to Uncle Kathy, but importantly, we use it to remind ourselves what Uncle Kathy was about in the struggle. And it is in this background that we are all happy all of you came here. When Uncle Kathy formed the foundation, when he went into retirement in 2008, what he was seeking to do is to say, I may not be in politics, but I want to see the South Africa that we envisaged succeed. And it is on those bases that as a foundation, you will find us all over the show trying to make a contribution in making sure that we do make the South Africa that we have spoken about, that we have fought for, which a lot of our comrades have died for. And as I conclude, as I thought I wanted to share an extract from the speech that was given by Uncle Kathy in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. In this speech, he was diverting and trying to speak about how they carried the struggle to fight apartheid even when they were in the Robben Island. And I thought it might be appropriate that I just read out I think Uncle Kathy said when he was trying to motivate the provincial leadership, she said, I quote, "We had a number of political organizations big and small. We had our differences. We debated, we argued, but our common enemy was apartheid. And against that common enemy, we shelved our political differences as prisoners and struggled unitedly. Ladies and gentlemen, let us continue this legacy. Uncle Kathy had a mission, and it is upon all of us to carry on and making sure that our common enemy is fighting unemployment, fighting poverty, fighting inequalities, and building the South Africa that we've all committed to in our constitution. I welcome all of you and thank you for honoring us. Thanks.
Thanks, Puma. You know, many people have this impression of Kathrada being soft and gentle. I would urge you to read just the trial transcripts of Ravonia, and just reading just a small piece here. Utah asks, by the way, have you been to India? No, I have not been. Do you know about the suffering of the people of India? Kathrada says, I know of the suffering of the people of this country where I was born. You've never been there, and you've never done any research, says Utah. Kathrada says, I've read about India. And don't the people suffer there? He says, yes, as a result of years and years of British oppression, people do suffer in India. Utah says, do you know George Naika? George Naika I know. I don't know him to have held any position in the South African Indian Congress. And is he a co-religionist of yours? Kathrada says, co-religionist, question mark. He's a Hindu and I'm a Muslim. Oh yes, but an Indian. Yes, Kathrada says, but two different religions. Utah says, Billy Nair? Question mark. I know Billy Nair. Utah says, also an Indian? Kathy says, also an Indian. Utah says, yes, and? Kathy says, and a human being. Now, that's facing the death penalty. And you stand there with that kind of defiance, he and the rest of his trialists. But read the rest of the trial transcript. It is a wonderful testimony of solidarity and defiance. At a point when he had the option of choosing a different route. We've asked one of our program managers who heads up our youth program, which is really the flagship of our work. We currently operate in about just under 50 communities across the province with youth clubs. And Obakeng Khache runs this program with the intention by 2029, the centenary of Ahmed Kathrada's birth, she will deliver 100 youth clubs, no pressure onto her, fully functional training grounds for young Democrats who will take forward the work and the legacy of Ahmed Kathrada. Obakeng, over to you.
Thank you. I get the pressure. It's fine. Dumelang. My name is Ahmed Kathrada, and yes, I serve as the Youth Activism Program Manager at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. I will try to keep it to below 8 minutes, as I've been given. I think it was such a difficult task, so I get a text message to say, can you reflect on what you think Kathy would have said to political parties that are contesting elections? And I'm like, where do I even start? But then, guided by some of his speeches, articles, and interviews that he did, I thought, let me try and put it in a summary. So in 2012, Uncle Kathy received an honorary doctorate degree from the University of the Witwatersrand. And in his acceptance speech, he said, I quote, I have a humble plea to all of you who are graduating today and leaving the university. You will be going into the world full of numerous challenges. When employing your newly acquired skills and expertise, please remember the responsibility that comes with success. There is the very important responsibility to the country. You are no doubt aware that South Africa is in dire need of skills and expertise in every direction. Without these, our country will not be able to make the progress that it needs in order to face the challenges before us. Taking from these words, I think what Uncle Kathy would have said here today is that post-elections we need to understand the responsibilities that come with leading. That is for any political party that will be given the authority to govern this country or the province. So when you win the elections and the people of this country employ you to govern, remember the responsibilities that come with that authority. To parties that might not make it into government, consider how you can use your skills and expertise to contribute towards building a better South Africa. This sad culture of politicians spending 80% or more of their time playing the blame game and not proposing solutions must come to an end. At the core of the AKF's youth department, like Mr. B said, is engaging young people in different communities at a grassroots level. I know many of you here would use the word groundwork, so that is our groundwork. And we have a presence in about 48 communities in Gauteng alone, and that is where we are currently. When we go and engage these young people and do our civic education workshops and talk about voting and participating in democratic processes, at the core of what they say, and I think many might think that, and I hear a lot when I engage with people who have not had conversations with young people, they have an assumption that young people are not interested, they are disengaged, they do not understand. But hear me when I say, what these young people say in those workshops is that they know very well what's happening in this country. They just feel not represented. They feel that no one is listening to them. And by deciding not to go to the voting polls during elections is making a political statement to say, none of you represent me. The ballot does not represent them and their needs as a majority in this country, and that's a sad reality. We only see political parties in our different communities during elections. What stops politicians from engaging communities post-elections? Us. I think what Katie would say to those contesting is that instead of going around now and cleaning up streets for votes, I was saying earlier to a colleague that just this morning as I woke up, I saw comrades of a particular political party get up to go and clean a certain dumping site in my area. And as I looked at them, I wondered, so we do this now until May, what happens after May? And so we wait again until 2026 or 2029. Sad reality. What I think political parties should be doing is going into these communities even post-elections, not to clean up because that's not what you're hired to do, but to have conversations with communities to say these are the people who are responsible for cleaning up your areas and this is how you hold them accountable for it. Engage communities on understanding how government works. Engage communities on understanding who to call and who to hold accountable for the mess that is not cleaned up. Because how do you think these communities survive in the 5 years that you are not there engaging them? In the 5 years that you are making statements and calling the press to say all sorts of things and gossip for hours in front of our screens. The same way, many are all over Alexandra, Tembisa, Hammanskraal, and Soweto now. It's the same way they should do it post-elections to engage communities and encourage them to participate in processes like the IDP and others, so that the process of strengthening democracy in our country is a collective one that includes the people. We need to send a message and remind you that these people who go out and vote are employing you to serve them. And you should never at any moment feel superior than them, because at the end of the day, it's Mutashi. In reflecting on 30 years of democracy, I read an article Kathy wrote on threats to democracy and was caught by a line that said, opposition parties have been and still are the established ingredient of all democracies. They exist under the protection of the Constitution and should be dealt with accordingly. Politicians should not be enemies, but structures competing for an opportunity to serve better. You need to find ways to talk and find each other in spaces and say, how do we make it better? Sure, I did not win the 2024 elections, but between 2024 and 2026, what am I doing to contribute? The people of this country are withdrawing from participating in democratic processes because all we see is politicians fighting for power. Is it power for who will have access to the next big tender, or a genuine edge to serve again as SARS? But surely Uncle Kathy and many others would want us to work towards a political landscape defined by accountability, integrity, and a steadfast commitment to the well-being of all citizens. And in closing, in the words of Uncle Kathy, we dare not for a moment forget that there is no dignity in poverty, hunger, and unemployment. I implore you, as we go into the 2024 elections and work towards protecting and strengthening our democracy in this 30 years that we are celebrating our democracy, again in his words, that may you all wake up daily and strive towards ensuring that we reach a point where we can only be satisfied and happy when every child wakes up in a warm house, has a good nutritious breakfast, is able to say a loving goodbye to both working parents or guardians, goes to school in safe and reliable transport, is met at school by teachers who are competent and ready to deliver, can walk back home guided by street lights that are on, will have a nourishing supper in the company of both parents or guardians, will enjoy being read to by either parent, will be able to make the best use of all the life opportunities that a free South Africa has to offer, without a fear, South Africa that is free of crime, corruption, rape, greed, caste, opportunism. A South Africa where there is a guarantee there will never ever be another London Gallo.
He's not available to any of the parties who are going to come up to speak now. Right? The lists are closed. Welcome to Comrade Solipeto from COSATU. Thank you very much for being here as well. So, we were trying to figure out how do we call parties up without wanting to be seen to be favored, giving anybody a special favor yet. Alphabetically is the way that we will do it. And therefore, we call up the ANC's DSG, Moropenya Ramakgopa, to kick off proceedings. 8 minutes is the maximum, less if you can. The louder the applause, the less the amount of time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And, good morning, and thank you for having us. Let me take this opportunity, of course, to thank the program director and also to acknowledge everyone else that is here. In particular, let me take this opportunity to thank, of course, the family of Uncle Kathy, and also thank, of course, the foundation for having this event, calling all of us as South Africans, as Democrats, to come here and just share the little bit that we know about Uncle Kathy. Let me also, of course, acknowledge the presence of political parties. I see my friend there. We are friends. People always think that we are fighting. We do have lunches together most of the time. My friend Soli and everybody else that is here. It is quite a wonderful event to see you, but also to acknowledge the presence of the leaders of the Alliance of the ANC, I see. And as it was already said by the program director, we've got COSATU as well, and everybody else that maybe I may not know exactly where they are coming from. But let me say good morning, and as I've already said, thank you. Indeed, we are still in the month where we are celebrating human rights, but also we are in a month where some religious bodies or religious communities are celebrating their religious festivals. And we come here knowing that we are a family, and we come here knowing that we are South Africans. I am bringing greetings, of course, and I won't take long, well wishes from the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress. And the ANC joins, of course, Ahmed Kathrada's foundation in the 7th commemoration that we are gathered here for today. Uncle Kathy, as he was fondly known to many comrades and family members and friends, was one of our esteemed leaders who was well known for his selfless integrity, commitment to a worthy cause frankness and humility amongst many of his characteristics. He made an outstanding contribution to the struggle for the total eradication of apartheid and also the transformation of South Africa into a united, democratic, non-racial, and definitely a non-sexist society that we are today living in. That is why I became so proud to hear the young woman who just spoke before me, speaking so boldly and courageously about what South Africa needs. So that then now shows us that what Comrade Kathy has fought for is definitely being seen today, and we are celebrating it. As we gather here for this commemoration of Uncle Kathy's passing, our honor, or we give honor to a remarkable patriot who left an indelible mark of our nation history and collective memory. Comrade Ahmed Kathrada's life was a testament to the power of unity. That is why we are here today, united as South Africans. He believed that the struggle against apartheid was not merely a battle for the rights of one race, but a collective fight for the dignity and freedom of all South Africans, and definitely human beings, as it was rightfully written in one of his books. His unwavering commitment to non-racialism and equality inspired generations to come. He made an immense contribution to the freedom we enjoy here today. In the face of an unjust and brutal system, Comrade Ahmed Kathrada and his comrades remained unyielding. They endured years of imprisonment, yet their spirits remained unbroken. And I think that is one thing that we have to learn and definitely stand up to, making sure that we emulate as we do whatever it is that we do in society, and in South Africa in particular. Their resilience was a beacon for those who felt the weight of oppression, the promises that even in the darkest of times, the flame of freedom could not be extinguished. As we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the advent of this democracy in South Africa, let us not forget the sacrifices of our forebearers like Uncle Kathy, who paved the way for our freedom. Let us draw inspiration from Comrade Ahmed Kathrada's legacy. Our struggle is not over, as you rightfully heard. There are still those young people who feel that they do not feel that they are represented. So the struggle to make sure that everyone who is a South African feel represented, therefore when they go and vote, they will be voting for something that they can identify with, I think is the new struggle that we all have to take upon ourselves, not only as political parties, but definitely as citizens of this country. As we are political parties, of course, and I'm standing here representing the ruling party, which is the ANC, where Comrade Kathy, of course, taught us to be who we are today, and to stand up for what we believe in, and to definitely make sure that that which that they aspired to see and they struggle to make sure that is being seen today is something that we all have to uphold. We don't uphold it only because we want to win elections, but we have to uphold it because we are human beings. I do know that from myself. I don't think that there's anybody who would say that the issues of unemployment, the issues of poverty does not touch them. Because if it doesn't touch you, definitely you know someone whom it touches, or you have passed somewhere where you have seen that definitely something needs to be done. So what we need to ask ourselves is that what do we do, like this young woman have just asked us today? When we go and campaign and when we come into government, we are not representing ourselves, but we are representing the aspirations of those people that elected us to be where we are. We don't go to campaign because we have to win, but we campaign precisely because we have to serve. So even if maybe we don't win to become the ruling party, we still have to know that those who elected us must definitely see a difference, because they voted us with the hope that we will change their lives. So winning is not only to win and become a president, but winning is making sure that you are in parliament, you are in a council, and your voice is heard, so that those who believed in you and whatever it is that you have said can be able to see, at least whatever it is that I raised with them is being raised and it will be heard. So my voice will be heard through them. So having said that, let me take this opportunity and thank you on behalf of the African National Congress, and thank you on behalf of those who don't necessarily get involved in politics, but they are Democrats and they are also activists who want to see a better life for South Africa and a better life for humanity. So thank you very much, Program Director. I hope that I didn't take too long.
Just just spot on in terms of time. Thank you so much. Action SA will be represented by Lerato Ngobeni. Lerato, over to you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to say to you, I believe in the ANC. It's the year of the Ramokhopas. I see the Ramokhopas are making waves. I grew up with them. So when I see Ramokhopa, I say, yes, we are represented. My name is Lerato Ngobeni. I am very honored to be here this morning. This is holy ground. I think for most of us, families, my mother-in-law is literally up the road. When we live here, we'll go see her, my father-in-law, my grandmother, my uncle. This is holy ground for most of us who live in this region. And so it's really, really an honor to be here. I wrote a speech this morning, and I promise you, I timed it. It's going to be in record time. I wrote it because of the person we are here to honor. I wrote it because we come from a creed of people who were prepared for battle. They didn't just come and ad-lib. You know, these days we are in the generation of ad-libbing and winging it. And I decided that to honor Uncle Kathy, I was going to write a speech that I have took the time to consider that speech. Let me disclaim by saying, I usually like to eyeball and see your eyeballs. But those of us who have entered politics, I've had lots of is like there is witchcraft, you know. We suffer health issues. Somebody attacked my eye last week. I couldn't see, and so I've been warned to keep out the elements, and that's why I'm wearing the shades that I'm wearing. So don't believe that I'm not honoring you in this way. In the name of our foremothers and forefathers, our merciful and benevolent God, the leadership of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, distinguished guests here present, leaders of political parties, fellow South Africans, Mashaka, Bahayetu, Dumelang, good morning. I'm honored to be standing here instead of Ndate Hemen Mashaba, who is the founder and president of our political movement, Shaking Things Up. Actually, I say, those who sing that song know precisely what we mean. I'm Lerato Ngobeni. I'm Action SA National Spokesperson. I'm also a Senate member of our organization. As I reflected on what I would say in my remarks to honor Uncle Kathy this morning, I remembered how fortunate some of us are to have met him. And I met him at the time of the launch of the book, Conversations with a Gentle Soul. And it was a month, I think, before he passed on in 2017. And I honor the book that he signed for me and the picture that I took with him. And so for that, I'm truly grateful. As we gather here today to honor his memory as a towering figure in the struggle for justice and equality, we should reflect on one of the fundamental pillars of democracy, one we have done well so far, that of having free and fair elections. We all know that the stakes have never been higher than what they are this year. I am sure that the man we are here to honor this morning is gently smiling as he watches some of us giving his political home a run for its money in these elections. But I'm sure he would assert that this is a good thing, that competition is a good thing. It forces humankind to innovate, to work harder, to think for better ways, to organize our societies and to treat people better. Uncle Kathy dedicated his life to pursuing a South Africa where all citizens could enjoy the rights and freedoms enshrined in our Constitution. He understood that the cornerstone of any democracy lies in our ability of its citizens to freely choose their leaders through fair and transparent elections. As we approach another election year, we must reaffirm our commitment to safeguarding the integrity of our electoral process. Free and fair elections are not merely a ritual, they are the lifeblood of our democracy and the mechanism through which the people's voices are heard and their will is expressed. But safeguarding the execution of free and fair elections requires more than just casting ballots. It requires vigilance, transparency, and a commitment to upholding the principles of democracy at every turn. It requires us to confront the forces of corruption, intimidation, and disenfranchisement that seek to undermine the very foundation of our democracy. Uncle Kathy understood the truth, understood this truth all too well. He fought tirelessly against the injustices of apartheid, knowing that the right to vote was not just a privilege, but a sacred duty. He understood that true democracy cannot exist where some are denied their fundamental rights, and he dedicated his life to pursuing that for all of us, so that all of us could participate fully in the democratic process. Let us honor his legacy by rededicating ourselves to the principles of democracy and, most importantly, to the achievement of justice. Let us commit to ensuring that every eligible citizen can exercise their right to vote freely and without fear. Let us reject the politics of division and hatred and instead embrace the values of tolerance, inclusivity, and respect for human dignity. In his own words, Uncle Kathy reminded us that the true character of a society is revealed in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Let us strive to build a South Africa where every voice is heard, every vote counts, and every citizen is treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve. Today, as we reflect on his life and legacy, let us recommit ourselves to building a more just society. Let us draw strength from his example as we confront the challenges of our time, knowing that his exemplary courage, compassion, and integrity remain relevant guiding principles today as they were during the darkest days of apartheid. Let us honor Uncle Kathy's memory with words and action. Let us strive to build a world where every person is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of race, religion, or background. And let us never forget the sacrifices his generation made, which paved the way for our generation to ensure that those who come after us appreciate that democracy is more than just elections, and that true democracy extends far beyond the ballot box. Finally, in the immortal words of American poet and author Audre Lorde, "My silence did not protect me, and your silence will not protect you." Let us honor Ahmed Kathrada's legacy by ensuring that our voices are heard loud and clear in the fight for justice and equality. Long live the spirit of Uncle Kathy. Long live.
Long live.
Just on time. Thank you very much. You know, the first two speakers have been wonderful, not only in terms of content, but in terms of timekeeping. Build One South Africa, Nobantu Shlazi Webster will follow. So, okay, Nobantu. Oh, there we are.
It's a nice name. Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm enjoying the chanting of our name at the back. It's good after the pressure from the two previous ladies who have kept to time and really honored Uncle Kathy. Good morning, everybody. As has been introduced, my name is Nobuntu Webster. I am co-founder and deputy leader of Build One South Africa. This morning we greet the family, the family that has gathered us here today together with the foundation. I want to also send greetings to the political parties and other organizations that are represented here. And like Lerato, I do want to say that it is an incredible honor to be able to be here to reflect on the life of a giant, to be able to be here as young leaders, as young people who do stand on the shoulders of giants and who are able to today have the opportunity to participate in the building of our own country because they lived and because they have charted the way for us and ahead of us. I send greetings from our leader, Musi Maimane, who holds great respect and great fondness for Uncle Kathy. He sends his warmest greetings to the family and to the foundation. Recently, it was a week ago, if I'm not mistaken, we were sat with some of the leaders here and some of the colleagues here from other political parties as we commemorated Sharpeville. And standing there that day, it was very significant, particularly in an election year, that we would commemorate the lives of those who fought for the struggle and who fought for our freedom. And so it is really an honor, and it is really fitting that a week later, we are here commemorating the life of Uncle Kathy, who was one of those who fought for our freedom and who was one of those who gave his life. And in fact, shortly after that incident of Sharpeville, was one of those who was detained as a result of those actions. Yesterday, I was in Cape Town at an informal settlement called Pumlamkash. A few days before that, I was in Tembisa. A few days before that, I had been in Durban at another informal settlement. And seeing the lives of South Africans and seeing the struggles of South Africans, I couldn't help but this morning reflect on a quote that Uncle Kathy shared while he was alive, which is, when I say we have achieved dignity as human beings, we must always still be aware that the challenges are no longer apartheid. The challenges are poverty, hunger, malnutrition, unemployment, housing. These are the challenges. And there's no dignity in poverty. There's no dignity in hunger. So we cannot be satisfied in what we have achieved. And as a political party, representing a political party today and with others, I think that there's a lot there is to reflect on the life of Ahmed Kathrada, and there's a lot that we need to look at and reflect on ourselves, especially in this campaign period, as we have been warned, to always put South Africans first and to always remember what the legacy is and what the job is now. It looks a little different, but at the end of the day, justice, equality, freedom, and dignity remain what we need to be fighting for. One of these things that we must remember is the sacrifice of living for a cause. We look at the life of Ahmed Kathrada, who started his political activism when he was 12 years old, and you're reminded of a generation that truly was incorruptible as freedom fighters, a generation that was truly selfless. We stand at a time and in a watershed moment in our country where that's what we have to be. If we are to realize the fruits of the freedom that was fought for, the sacrifices that was made, we really truly need to be selfless. It cannot be about us. It has always got to be about South Africans. When you look at the life of Ahmed Kathrada, who joined the Young Communist League when he was 12 years old, who at the age of 17 left school to work full-time in the offices of the Transvaal Passive Resistance Council, and his many years, 26 years, spent in prison, that is a life that is given up for the people of this country. And that is what we must take on. And that is what we must be willing to do in whatever shape or form it comes in. We must take from Ahmed Kathrada a lesson in collaboration. And never have we needed collaboration as we do now. We are at a time where we have to put South Africans first. We're at a time where we have to put ourselves aside. And we know we're at a time where inevitably in the provinces, nationally, we have to look at how do we work together, how do we collaborate, how do we work in coalitions, how do we put aside whatever is our politics, how do we put aside whatever is our own ambitions and put South Africans first. Uncle Kathy worked tirelessly to promote joint action. As a leader of the Youth Action Committee, he coordinated the wings of the African, Indian and other congresses. He was a champion for non-racialism, which is something, as Bulban is saying, we hold at the core of who we are. He was a champion for collaborating and bringing people together who had different ideas, but who shared the need to see the advancements and progress justice and freedom for South African people. We've been personally inspired by Ahmed Kathrada, and Musi often very fondly shares how before he passed on, he had wanted to take him and Julius to Robben Island to be able to share personally with them what that was about, what that sacrifice was, and what that meant. And we've seen Uncle Kathy even during the Fees Must Fall protests of 2015. I myself wasn't a student. I'm not as young as I may look. But I was at those protests and remember seeing him there and moved, because those are people who we had thought had run their race and had given us everything they had to give. But he was still there to support young people. He was also still there to be able to encourage and inspire the fights and the challenges that we have to forge today. I myself am inspired by his support for women leadership. When we hear of his support for the 1956 Women's March, I'm inspired by that and I'm encouraged as a woman leader. And so, as we commemorate this life, as we reflect this life, particularly in this incredible year, that is 2024, in this important and significant year, may we remember that we stand on the shoulders of giants. May we remember that the path that was started is ours to continue. And we recognize and appreciate and want to acknowledge the work of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, who continues that legacy and that work. But it is for all of us to do that. It is for all of us to always remember what it truly is about in the end. It is about the dignity of South Africans. It is about justice, social and economic justice for South Africans. And it is about making sure that this journey, this work that has been started by the likes of Ahmed Kathrada is continued and brings the prosperity that we have always wanted to see in South Africa and know that this country is capable of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fees Must Fall was also the first time that Ahmed Kathrada got to get the taste of tear gas at the Union Buildings protest. He wanted to go there and we went. And invariably it slightly got out of hand. And the police, for whatever reason, decided to fire the tear gas in the direction that we were taking away. But for a few moments I got the sense that he wanted to savor this because he had never experienced it in prison. He didn't get to experience it. But fortunately sanity prevailed and we got him away from there. The DA will be represented by Solim Semanga. Solim.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I will be lazy and use the most famous South African word, all protocol is observed. I think I'd written a speech that I wanted to use to reflect on the life of Babu Kathrada. But as I was driving and listening to the radio, there's something that struck me. And I think this is something that we all need to reflect on, is that there was a generation that wanted to stand and represent something that is different, something that was strong, a generation that was willing to stand and say, in spite of government, in spite of everything else, we have to stand and we have to do something. We now live in a world, or we now live in a country where everybody's expecting somebody else to do something, and we need to reflect on that and say, are we going to continue to expect something to be done by somebody else? Are we going to then stand and say we have to do something on our own? To my friend Mera Mukhopa and all the political leaders from other parties, I think it is upon us to then say, as much as we're making these promises, we also need to then engage and challenge the communities around us, to then say it is not the job of government on its own to do all these things, but it's all of us holding hands and standing up and saying, how do we do it together? And I think that is what the Kathrada Foundation is also trying to reach out to build in the next generation that is able to then stand and is able to then achieve greater things. I think today, as we reflect and remember and recommit ourselves to the values and principles to which Kathrada lived his life by, the principles of democracy, equality, inclusivity, and non-racialism, to name just about a few. Ahmed Kathrada embodied the resilience of the fortitude of a nation that refused to be silenced in the face of injustice, the resilience and the fortitude now required by every South African. Ahmed Kathrada's journey is a testament to the power of the human spirit. Alongside his fellow Riverina trialists, he endured 26 years of incarceration on the desolate shores of Robben Island, a symbol of apartheid's cruelty and injustice. Their crime, their unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and freedom for all South Africans, regardless of race. While what would have been easy for them to come out bitter after 26 years in prison, Kathrada's story is not one of despair, but one of unwavering hope and resilience. Despite the darkness of his confinement, he emerged as a beacon of light, dedicated his life to the pursuit of democracy, equality, social justice, and non-racialism. His courage, his sacrifice, and his unwavering principle continue to inspire our generation and should reflect and inspire the next generation as well. As we reflect on Kathrada's legacy, we must also confront the harsh realities of the present. We must also reflect on what significant role has been played. As much as strides have been made since 1994, our journey towards a truly just and equitable society is far from over. The wounds of the past still run deep, and the scars of inequality continue to mar the fabric of our nation. Today, South Africa stands at a crossroads. We are confronted with daunting challenges, from crime to inequality, corruption, and mass unemployment. The dream of a united, non-racial South Africa, envisioned by Ahmed Kathrada and countless others, remain elusive to a whole lot. But we cannot lose hope. We should not lose hope. Let us draw strength from Kathrada's unwavering resolve and his commitment to justice. Let us confront the harsh realities of our present circumstance with the same courage and determination that he did during his 26 years in prison, knowing that the journey towards a better South Africa begins with each and every one of us. In honoring Ahmed Kathrada, let us not merely pay lip service to his memory, but let us be inspired by the example to redouble our efforts towards building a more just, equitable, and inclusive society. Let us strive to be the change we wish to see in the world, knowing that the journey towards a truly free and fair South Africa is long and challenging, but also knowing that the journey is indeed worth taking. As we remember Kathrada, let us recommit ourselves to the noble ideas and ideals for which he fought, for which he lived by. Let us stand together, united in our diversity, as we continue the journey towards a brighter, more inclusive future for all South Africans. And we as a Democratic Alliance wish to further commit ourselves to the free and fair elections come 2024, the 29th of May. In closing, I want to then say that it takes ordinary people doing ordinary things every day that they can achieve extraordinary things. It's when all of us stand and not pointing fingers at each other and saying, what can we all do together ordinarily, that we're able to then achieve great things. It starts with a simple thing, picking up a piece of paper on the side of the road. It starts with simple things, reporting crime when you see it, and not turning the blind eye and say, well, it's not my responsibility. It starts with somebody who is then able to then stand and say, if there is crime that is committed, I will be the first to report it. That we do ordinary things, that extraordinary things begin to then happen. That is what we all need to reflect on. That is what we need to stand up on. And that's what we need to then teach the generation that come after that. If we're able to do that, we will indeed leave a country, a province, a ward, a house that everybody else will be proud of for the next coming generation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sally. Kathy writes in his memoirs, the run-up to the 1994 elections witnessed the beginning of speculation, or rather, let me just say, there was a lot of speculation about me getting onto the cabinet. Not in my wildest dreams did I expect the following to happen. Before the announcement of the cabinet, I attempted to convey via comrades Walter Sisulu and Thabo Mbeki that if my name came up for consideration, they should convey to Madiba to exclude me. I took this position not out of modesty, but primarily because I believed I did not have the aptitude to serve on such an august body. Unfortunately, when Madiba announced the first cabinet, I was surprised to see that he had made me Minister of Correctional Services. Obviously, my message had never reached him. In the meantime, I received reports of celebrations in several prisons because the prisoners believed that one of their own was now to occupy the position. As matters transpired, in response to demands by the IFP to be given one of the security position, the problem was solved by giving them the correctional services post. This suited me fine. Now, in the same vein, he was offered so many positions on boards of companies, and he turned it down. He says, I've never run a business. My family didn't even trust me to be behind the counter of the shop in Swaziland. So I add no value to any business and therefore rejected all of these offers. Things are very different now. We call on the IFP by Zandile Majosi to come and share a few words as well. Welcome, Zandile.
Thank you, Honorable Program Director. Unfortunately, I will not follow suit on Honorable Soli. I will read as listed. Trustees of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, members of Parliament and the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am truly honored today to represent the IFP of the great icon that we are celebrating. As young as I am, I was not even part of the liberation struggle then that they went through, but we are here today enjoying the fruits of those liberation. I am honored to represent the Inkatha Freedom Party today as we gather to remember the great liberation icon, Mr. Ahmed Kathrada. We pay tribute to this great leader as our democracy moves forward towards an era of coalition politics and the age and rebuilding of South Africa. The passing of Ahmed Kathrada in 2017 was a painful moment for our nation. He was part of the generation who fought, sacrificed, and worked to secure the freedoms we enjoy today. And he did so with tenacity, courage, and integrity. He was a true servant leader who embodied all that is good, true, and beautiful in a human spirit of Ubuntu Butu. His voice will never be silenced, but we will miss his contribution as we continue the journey of democracy. Mr. Kathrada and our leader founder, His Excellency Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, were good friends. They became close because of their shared love for South Africa. Over 8 decades, they witnessed countless milestones and endured endless hardships in the pursuit of political liberation. Both were blessed and ultimately among those who saw liberation achieved. However, this did not stop them, and they continued to contribute to the strengthening of fledgling democracy. Mr. Kathrada dedicated himself to activism in his youth and continued to fight for the betterment of South Africa throughout his life. He exhibited great courage during the treason trial and the 26 years he spent incarcerated because of his beliefs. His letter to former President Zuma, urging him to listen to the will of the people, was a brave act of patriotism and will be remembered as such. As the Inkatha Freedom Party, we are grateful that current and future generations of South Africans can benefit from the wisdom and experiences shared by Mr. Kathrada. We can learn about his remarkable life and character through his speeches, interviews, and statements. Those who wish to know more about him can watch the film, I quote, A Man for All Seasons. and close quote. Or read a book, I quote, The Triumph of the Human Spirit, and close quote. As we move forward, it's important to remember the core values and missions of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. These principles should guide our work and help us to stay committed to our goals. Even when faced with insurmountable challenges, the next election is shaping up to be a particularly difficult one. And it's essential that we all do our part to ensure that it is free and fair and conducted in the spirit of peace, lawfulness, and harmony. Encouraging everyone who is registered to vote to exercise their right to do so is one of the most important ways we can achieve this goal of free and fair elections. This is especially true for young people who have a particularly responsibility to help shape the future of our democracy. We can't afford to sit on the sidelines and let others make decisions that will affect us all. In order to achieve this goal of free and fair elections, we must remain vigilant and proactive. This means staying informed about the issues, candidates, and working together to ensure that everyone has access, accurate information, and resources. It also means willing to stand up for what we believe in and to hold our leaders accountable when they fall short. Our success will depend on our ability to stay true to our values and mission. We must remain committed to building a more just and equitable society and to creating a political system that truly represents the people it serves. With hard work and dedication, we can achieve these goals and make a real difference in the world. In conclusion, the legacy of Mr. Kathrada will continue to inspire those who seek to learn from our nation's past and hope and pray that future South Africa will see the birth of more leaders like him and His Excellency Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. May they both rest in eternal peace, confident that the leaders of today and tomorrow will carry forward the vision of a free, harmonious, and prosperous South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kathrada writes to Oliver Tambo. He says, the main purpose, my dear brother, the main purpose is to put right certain perceptions of myself. I am concerned that an image is being fostered both locally and abroad, which is not strictly in keeping with my real status and contribution in the political field. The recent conferment of the Isitwe Landwe Award upon me and other proposed plans have aggravated the position and induced me to write this. He says, placing my name in the same league as the Tuli, Dadu, Huddleston, Sisulu, Mandela, Kotani does not only not reflect the correct historical and political position, but carries the danger of reducing the prestige of the award. It has been my understanding that Isitwe Landwe is intended to honor outstanding national leaders for their exceptional qualities and leadership roles, for initiating innovative thought and direction, and for their pivotal contribution to the struggle. I am not attempting to play down my long involvement in the movement, but I don't think that fact alone qualifies me for elevation to the first team. And he said, take the award, I don't want it. Fortunately, they didn't listen to him. The unfortunate thing is that he's given this award, which was a fairly big medal. After the unbanning, a few years later, the ANC needs to give this award to somebody else and they don't have medals. And they ask him for the medal. And he gives it. And they never give this thing back. They gave him a much smaller one, which we now have. I'm not asking for it back, but I'm just saying that some parts of history must be corrected at some point.
This one is more the one we gave is more value.
Now we'll check the gold content later. Our last political party here is Rise Mzansi, represented by Makashula Ghana. Makashula? 8 minutes.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the reminder. It's always difficult to be the last one to speak after listening to my colleagues, my fellow politicians. You know, we are the few ones who are proud to be politicians, because for us, being a politician is an act of service to the people of this country. So thanks very much, Program Director, to the Kathrada family, the Board of Trustees of the Kathrada Foundation, the political leaders here, activists, civil society, organization present, fellow South Africans. The preamble of our constitution starts with one of the most powerful piece of writing that one has ever read. And I'll just quote it in full, just so that it gives the base of what I'm going to say. It reads, I quote, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to, 1, heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice and fundamental human rights. 2, to lay the foundation for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by the law. 3, to improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person. And finally, to build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations." End quote. So how often in the rough and tumble of this election campaign, as we compete with each other for votes and seats in parliament and legislatures, do we remember these inspiring words from the preamble of our constitution? And how often do we stop to think about how extraordinary it is that we have the right as political parties to contest free and fair elections where every South African has a right to vote? That we have a Bill of Rights which declares that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Coming here today, just a few weeks before the elections, to honor Ahmed Kathrada's life, gives us a moment to pause, to remember the sacrifice that he and his generation made so that we can fight these elections. It gives us a pause to remember how important it is for us to remain united in our diversity. Even in our diversity of political opinions, as we are on this stage today, to honor Uncle Kathy, Nelson Mandela, Robert Sobukwe, Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, and many others of their generation. We must remain united in our commitment to make freedom real for all South Africans, even if we are in different parties. And we must, of course, commit ourselves to free and fair elections and to accepting the will of the voters, whatever they decide. It is an honor to be here today to commemorate the 7th anniversary of Uncle Kathy's passing. He He embodies the qualities that we at Rise Mzansi try to emulate, which are fearless courage, empathy, humility, perseverance, integrity, and integrity. In these troubled times, he stands high as a beacon of ethical leadership. When we at Rise Mzansi commit ourselves to democracy, to non-racialism, to the respect of the rule of law, we do so to honor him and his generation of freedom fighters who gave us this legacy through their struggle. In his case, through his immense sacrifice of over 26 years in jail as one of the Rivonia trialists. And I want to quote an interview that he gave in 2013, and this is what he said. I quote, "The first thing we achieved on the 27th of April 1994 is dignity. Dignity and equal human rights. Prior to that, all over South Africa, there were signs saying Europeans only in libraries, restaurants, hotels, parks, railways, everywhere you go. And signs that said, non-Europeans not allowed. There were even signs that said, non-Europeans and dogs not allowed, which reduced human beings who were not white to the level of animals." End quote. He made it his life struggle to fight for the dignity of all human beings, and as a lifelong member of the ANC, it took a great courage in 2013 to acknowledge that 2 decades after democracy, South Africans could not yet take the right to dignity for granted. And this is how he continued, and I quote, when I say we have achieved dignity as human beings, we must always still be aware that the challenges are no longer apartheid. The challenges are poverty, hunger, malnutrition, unemployment, and housing. Those are the challenges. And there's no dignity in poverty. There's no dignity in hunger. So we cannot be satisfied with what we have achieved. End quote. 7 years after Uncle Kathy's passing, those challenges to the dignity of all South Africans are still here with us. And so we cannot be satisfied. In his name, we must continue the struggle. Free and fair elections are a central tenet of a functional democracy and ensuring that the will of the people prevails. As Rise Mzansi, we fully commit to conducting ourselves in a manner that will ensure that the May 29th elections are free and fair. We will not engage in acts of violence or intimidation, either in person or online. We commit to not spreading misinformation and disinformation in our campaigning. We also commit to respecting and abiding by all the electoral laws of our country. Uncle Kathy will have expected no less from an organization like ours, Rise Mzansi.
No, thank you very much and good morning. On behalf of COSATU, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Program Director, the family of Uncle Kathy, the leadership of the ANC led by the First Deputy Secretary General, SSCP, all the political parties, the foundations of Comrade Kathrada. I'm not going to guarantee you, my problem is that when I speak out of my mind, I take 3 hours, 4 hours. But when I read, it's 5 minutes. So I'm going to stick to what I've written here so that I don't take much of your time. Thank you very much, Program Director, and thank you very much for inviting COSATU to join this important event in honor of Uncle Kathy. In this time of stress, we will do well to tap into the examples of such giants when we struggle to produce leaders who put the nation above the personal interests, who are happy to deflect their feelings, we should reflect on the life of Uncle Katie. He led by exemplary life and dedicated into serving not only the ANC, SSCP, but he served the nation at large. He joined the actual DSG. He joined the actual Umkondo Wesizwe when the reward at that time was about death and life imprisonment. In 1994 election, few remember Madiba initially, as the program director was saying, announced Uncle Katie as appointed as a Minister for Correctional Services. But just in short space, sooner it was withdrawn to accommodate, that's the unity that Uncle Katie was, to accommodate the IFP. Comrade Katie never complained, and he was happy to support Madiba's leadership. This is what program director said. Comrade Katie, Uncle Katie was not a position monger. Today you see some of us joining political parties, forming organization for leadership. Uncle Ronnie Castles. It's not about us. It should be about the society and the people of South Africa. Leadership is not about power, it's about responsibilities. Katie symbols the Freedom Charter's non-racial spirit, a vision we are neglecting today. We are 8 weeks away from our most contested election since 1994. We have been deeply concerned by the behavior of some parties, some individual or independent candidate and citizen. We have appealed as organized labor to all parties and candidates to abide by the Electoral Act. IEC, Electoral Court, the SAPS, the NPA must deal with anyone who incites violence, threatens teachers or any other person employed by the IEC to assist with the running of the election or undermining any way the importance of the work of the IEC, including questioning the IEC capacity to run a free and fair and credible election. With all our challenges, we cannot afford to undermine the IEC. We all have a role to play, including ordinary citizens. We need to all play all our role in supporting the IEC in ensuring free and peaceful election campaign. COSATU and our village were actively involved in the election campaign. We're engaging workers to vote and make sure that we do not do anything that is against the law, but we are also doing so within the confines of the law. We respect our members and our members are not hegemonious and have their own views. We will not tolerate anyone who breaks the law, no matter the color of your t-shirt. No matter the color of your t-shirt. And we will, as workers or as organized labor, we will not tolerate and will not agree anyone to provoke workers like it's happening currently about the Section 189, about retrenching workers, about dismissing DSG. I'm from KZN, dealing with the challenges of eThekwini municipality where almost about 25,000 workers were dismissed. But we want to thank you as the ANC, as a political party, to work with us to make sure that all those workers are reinstated. Life continues after election. We may disagree at the time, but we need to respect and work with each other. As I conclude, we plea as we remember Uncle Katie, the OR Tambo, Solomon Matlangu Krizani, and many other leaders. The fate of South Africa is in our hands. COSATU will play our role to make sure elections are fair, free, and peaceful. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Now Zora will tell you if Kathrada were here today, at the end of these proceedings, he would have been able to tell you how many of the women here had high heels. Not for any other reason, because he just couldn't figure out how people could walk in those things for hours and hours. And he was worried about what it would do to their back and their posture and everything else. And on his last return from his last trip to London, that was the one thing. He had stats of how many high heels and flat shoes had been observed. So you would have been fine. You would have been fine.
He was overstepping the mandate.
Yeah. No, that was grassroots work. We had asked the interfaith movement to say a few words, and I'm told that Guru Dineshan Murli will say a few words on behalf of the Hindu Mahasabha. Am I correct? Good? Over to you.
Thank you very much to the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation and the political parties that have joined us, and the rest of the members that are here representing various organizations. It gives me great honor and privilege to speak on this most auspicious day. And I think hearing the political parties and the civil rights organizations share their feelings, their commitment to free and fair elections and to put the people of South Africa first is something that is truly inspiring. As the representative for the South African Hindu Mahasabha and the Hindu organizations in South Africa, as well as being part of the Interfaith Council, I think it is really important that we look at how religion and the various faith-based organizations play an important part in the moral fiber of our society. I think it's key that we turn back to these organizations. As political parties, as leaders in these communities, we need to make sure that we are directing not just the older folk, but even the youth back to their scriptures, back to following the value systems that is intertwined between every religious organization, that creates that unity, that creates that brotherhood of man and sisterhood for all of the citizens of South Africa. So I look forward to hearing and seeing great and wonderful elections, the rise of democracy in South Africa, the alleviation of poverty, of suffering of our people. And let it not be that any one particular racial group is seen to be suffering more than the other. I think there's suffering across all of South Africa, and we need to put aside these issues of race and politics and do what is best for our society and the people that live in it. So thank you very, very much for giving us this honor. We pray that the entire of South Africa look forward to brighter days, look forward to more success, less poverty, more employment, and a better living condition for all South Africans. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Just to close off this round of tributes and remembrance messages, Reverend Mossen Clark, on behalf of the Defend Our Democracy movement, over to you.
I have been given 4 minutes, and I'm a reverend, supposed to talk about an icon in all of 4 minutes, but I'm very thankful that it is not as daunting a task as it is for politicians, because they are given, what, 8 minutes? because they have a hard job to do. South Africans are, the confidence that South Africans have in politicians of all sorts is at an all-time low. And so they have to work that much harder. And so I can only offer to pray for them, all of them, and ask God to help them. And I know it must be a challenge even for God to help them. But let me read the text that I have before me in tribute to Uncle Kathy, and to also thank obviously the AKF, Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, for creating this moment for us to be able to go back in history and to think about what is important to us as a people in order to construct together a future that we can be proud of, and that they, the previous generation, can be proud of. 7 years ago to the day, the country woke up to the news that one of the foremost revolutionaries had passed away. However, in the days of mourning that followed Ahmed Kathrada's death, the country was wrecked with instability due to the sudden sacking of the then Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and his deputy, Mcebisi Jonas. 7 years ago, almost to the day, South Africa had finally woken up to the news that our country was being well and truly captured. The alarm bells of which were sounded by Kathrada himself in his famous open letter a year before. We must be deeply grateful for the efforts of civil society, of some within the political arena, of our judiciary, the media, and members of the public who refused to allow the state to collapse under the sheer weight of corruption and state capture. While we did not manage to put an ultimate end to the scourge of after Kathrada's passing, we ensured that the wholesale ransacking of state was prevented. We thought that the West was over. Yet 4 years after Kathrada's death, in 2021, the country was again brought to its knees. This time, the instability manifested in defiance to the Constitution, or to the Constitutional Court, in inciting social media messages and a breakdown of law and order in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng. Despite the slow-footed approach of law enforcement, we still managed to pull back from the brink. And now, 3 years on, as we stand on the cusp of what will be the most contested election since the dawn of democracy, we are already starting to hear some disturbing murmurings. Who is it that even before the elections has kicked off is threatening the IEC? Who is it that is threatening chaos if they do not receive 2/3 majority? Why is it that once again it appears to be similar sinister forces rooted in a particular part of our country who are threatening instability if things do not go their way? In 2021, some of these forces conveniently hid behind the mask of social media and the smoke from the arson attacks following the looting sprees. However, in 2024, the threats are being made far more openly in public and in particular parties' political platforms. South Africa has had free and fair elections carried out by the IEC since 1994. And we must ensure that it stays that way. We call on law enforcement agencies to act now against anyone putting forward narratives that seek to pivot this country to a point of no return. We will not accept piteous excuses that were proffered by law enforcement in July 2021 about why they were caught flat-footed. Labor movements, business, faith and civic leaders must once again stand united against any attempt to undermine democracy or democratic processes. Like before, and as displayed by the example of Kathrada, and by the way, I must say that the reason I'm wearing this scarf is not to irritate any of you who don't like it, but to signal simply that this is also something very close to Ahmed Kathrada's heart. This requires a certain courage to speak out and the ability to work across ideological lines. Over the next few weeks, as we mark Easter, Eid, Pesach, and the Hindu New Year, and political parties seek platforms at our religious gatherings, we must ensure that they do not use these platforms to promote narratives that undermine democracy. In fact, we should ensure that our religious platforms are used to call out these dangerous narratives. We call on all political parties and their supporters to act within the Electoral Code of Conduct. Elections are meant to be fiercely contested, but it does not give political parties the license to act against the law. The test of true political leadership in this period will be the extent to which the politicians and political parties are able to put the interests of the country first. Putting the country first means not undermining the IEC, not discrediting the elections and electoral processes without any reliable evidence. It means not writing letters to other governments asking them to intervene in our country. And it means taking any genuine concerns about the election to the appropriate structures to be investigated. To the ordinary South African, we ask you to become an election observer. We are running a politically non-partisan campaign to get South Africans to observe the elections. Through your presence at a voting station, you can help to ensure the integrity of this election. Be an active citizen. Guard your own democracy by becoming an election observer under the Election Watch campaign, details of which can be found on the Defend Our Democracy social media pages. In his eulogy to Kathrada 7 years ago, here at West Park Cemetery, former President Kgalema Motlanthe said, "Today is a day on which we close the eyes of Comrade Ahmed Kathrada permanently. Because during his lifetime he opened our eyes forever and saved us from the blindness of the heart. In this subversive act of opening our eyes, he made us believe in our inherent ability to create a totally new order of reality. 7 years later, we must ask ourselves if our eyes have remained open, and if we are prepared to keep them open through 2024 and beyond to defend our democracy." I thank you.
Let me just thank all of the speakers, but also request that you please forward us all of your texts so that we can consolidate it and place them up on our social media platforms, so that not only will people have the live recordings, but can read the text of your contributions. I just want to end with a current issue. Kathy writes in his memoirs, in truth, MK's contribution was admirable and needs no embellishment to take its place in the annals of the struggle. Where discrepancies occur in accounts of MK's role, it should be borne in mind that people involved in some events remember the details differently, and amnesia is no friend of accuracy. He says, I was a member of a unit that carried out modest acts of sabotage with the due purpose of assessing the targets and testing the efficacy of our equipment. At no time did I object in principle to the decision to move to armed struggle, and I have never harbored the slightest regret about MK's formation. I did, however, terminate membership of the regional command during the first half of 1962 after discussing certain reservations with some of my senior comrades. Not all men are born to be soldiers, and I realized at a fairly early stage that my aptitude lay in the political rather than the military fields. My view was in no way at odds with the policy of either the ANC or the South African Indian Congress. Indeed, at the joint meeting where they agreed to form MK, it was explicitly spelled out, this should not be at the expense of our political work. In light of all of the debates about that organization and its roots, I think we need to look at Kathy's own words and commitment at the time.
Parties in the order in which you were speaking, to please come forward and lay your flowers here. Bosa, Dan, the IFP, Prize Mzanzi, Kosato is done. Thank you for your presence. Let me just point out that this grave site is the size of the prison cell that Kathrada spent his 18 years on Robben Island. This is the exact size of the prison cell. The bars there reflect the prison bars, but those bars, the walls around the prison have now been broken. Right? Yes. This is the exact size of the prison cell. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you all for your presence here today, and thank you for coming forward to remember Uncle Kathy and pledging to take forward the work required to deliver us free and fair elections on the 29th of May. Thank you very much.
Yay.
Now we've got it.